All right, we are live streaming. We are live.
Yay.
Yay. Yay. All right, I'm a bit delirious today because I've got the flu, the cold, or the nose is running, and so please forgive me. But welcome to the Inner Sanctum online session. So wonderful to be here with you all again. And our very special guest today is Cynthia Sue Larson. Welcome, Cynthia.
Oh, thank you. Such a pleasure to be with you.
So great to have you back. Like you were on the show last year and I revisited our conversation, such a great conversation on ATP Media last year. And there's lots to chat about. Let me just, there we go. And, but, you know, let me hang on. For people that don't know you, I'll just do a quick bio read, very quick. But I have a question for you, which is something a friend of mine posed. Kristen and I were talking about it, actually. Global Human Mind Redesign Project. That's what you call your business? Your work?
Not exactly. It was something that I worked on back in 1987, right after the first harmonic convergence. And it was something that I was doing in the astral realms. It was like a lucid dream project, but it was real. So it was something I was involved in as quality assurance. So I got interviewed for it by basically a being. I was working with a whole number of different beings. Some of them seemed humanoid and some of them really didn't. And that was okay because what we were looking at was the next level of human consciousness on the planet. Remember, that was 1987. So going forward, now it's easier to look back and see what happened next. What happened next is the crystal kids, the indigo kids. All those kids came through and they were the result of what that project was really about. It was looking at basically, there were some criteria going forward. It would be nice for humans to maintain creativity without going crazy, to be able to be compassionate and empathetic deeply, also without going crazy. So the more you can sense how others are feeling, that can be an issue. And the more creativity you have, that can be an issue. So it was really a balancing act of looking at these possible mind designs that were being presented by a number of different beings. And like I said, I was interviewed for the quality assurance part of the project. That meant I understood the criteria of the project, what we're looking for. And if things seemed untenable, then it was my job to basically give the bad news to usually the aliens you would least want to speak to. They would be, because they scare people, they get a bad reputation. So it would be the reptilians. We did have reptilians presenting their idea of where humans could next go. And those are some of the fails. There's some black beetle guys that had some fails. So I was basically saying, if it was a fail, then it's like, just start over. But if it was pretty good and it just needed a little reworking, then I would say this is pretty good, but there's some issues. So that was my role. And it lasted for a couple of weeks. It was an extraordinary experience because I kept feeling like I was being whisked away. I was working my day job by day, my night job by night. So this is something I'm part of, that humanity is part of. It's really for all of us. It's not just me. And it was a huge project. And I did get to meet some amazing beings. I didn't talk about it at the time because I felt it was before I started Reality Shifters. And frankly, I was still working with my MBA degree at Citibank as an information technology fast track manager. I was being fast tracked for the vice presidency. So clearly, this is not the kind of thing to talk about. It's kind of a career destroyer, I would think. So I just didn't bring it up.
Career destroyer. Only career in the third dimensional world. But yeah, this totally dovetails with the question I want to pose to you, actually, when you talk about the crystal children and, the result of the Global Human Mind Redesign Project. But let me, anyway, finish your bio. Cynthia Sue Larson is a best-selling author of many consciousness-expanding books, including Quantum Jumps, Reality Shifts, High Energy Money, Aura, Advantage, and Karen Kimball and the Dreamweaver's Web, the founder of Reality Shifters, first president of the International Mandela Effect Conference, managing director of Foundations of Mind and creator and host of the Living the Quantum Dream podcast. And she reminds us every day, how good can it get? So the book Karen Kimball and the Dreamweaver's Web, you said to me last time, is a book for young people, like for teenagers, right? Is it a fictional book, is it?
It's fiction. It's good for anyone who likes to read young adult novels. So I wouldn't put an age restriction on it. If you like that kind of fiction, it's perfect. Then it's for you.
I had a friend reach out to me. She's got a 15-year-old, and she said, do you know a book for like a teenager that talks about, teenage starseeds? So what we're seeing with these new kids coming in is they're uber sensitive, ultra sensitive, and they don't fit into the whole paradigm of the school. And so they're desperately trying to fit in with other people. I mean, I have to say her daughter is really gregarious and outgoing, but so sensitive. And basically they suffer, like they just suffer from their sensitivity. And it's so funny. I've spoken to so many people over the years, and I could not think of a book for a teenager like that. And then when I was reading that, I'm thinking, does this book fit that criteria?
Yes, it does. It's about a young girl, and she goes to a swim camp and brings her pet rat with her, and she learns about meditation and astral travel, lucid dreaming, and kind of working with true conscious agency, but without using any of those buzzwords, really, So just the experiences of all of that without getting stuck. Sometimes humans are really good at labeling things and then assuming, since we've labeled it scientifically, we know everything there is to know about it, and nothing could be farther from the truth. We know gravity, but we still can't say exactly whether it can be quantized or not. We don't know how to explain it properly. Time is another big one. So this book just kind of touches on the experience of all of this, the experience of doing these kinds of things, and animal communication, talking with other beings telepathically, all of that. So for me, it's a good primer for anybody who's expanding into this new sense of being part of this globally redesigned human mind, because that's what's happening. And it's open for all of us. If people are listening and they think, well, I was born before 1987, it's quite possible that some of us were front runners. I'm sure I was. And I think that's definitely true for probably most of the people here with your group. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. Like they talk about the indigo kids. I was an indigo kid and I'm old now. Yeah, but didn't do 3D school. Amazingly creative, incredibly psychic. Didn't know I was psychic because I didn't understand psychic ability. And just struggled. I remember just like my friend's daughter, that desire, because when she was telling me about her daughter, I thought back to when I was a teenager, that desire to want to fit in. I remember asking my dad in the car one day when he was driving me to school, what does it take to be popular? Like to have that desire to fit in. And I look back at that now and it's like, why do you want to fit in when you can stand out? Like, why do you want to fit in when you can be a leader, But what would you say to kids that are like that?
Well, each one is so unique. So I'd really invite them to get to learn to trust their own relationship first with themselves. And by that, I mean, there are different levels of ourselves. So it's good to get to know yourself. Who are you when you're dreaming? Who are you when you're daydreaming? Who are you when you're just in nature? Because sometimes that's the first clue for such a child to get to sense like, oh, that is different than when I'm with people. And to start to notice, like, what are those differences, and how are you adapting in each situation? Because we do that. And the way that we do it is very unique to each of us. And learning about ourselves is the key to pretty much everything. It's the key to learning how to be happy, how to find goals that work for each of us, relate to the earth and to animals and nature and people and what we're doing, tasks and ideas. So it's really the key to everything is just paying attention.
And, these kids are the reality shifters as we kind of wind down. These kids coming forward are, they're the reality shifters. They're the ones bringing in a new paradigm, aren't they?
And they are doing TikToks about reality shifting. They're popularizing the topic. And I think that's really cool.
We had a one-on-one.
Who said that?
Oh, I'm glad. That was good. That was better for you. Or was it? Who knows?
Sounds like I might mute Pat. I think that's Pat. Someone's having a conversation. Is everyone muted? Yeah, I think they are. Are they doing TikToks about reality shifting? Are they cool?
Yes,
I
they
haven't
are.
seen that.
Yeah, I'm not doing much TikTok myself, but I heard about it from my daughter who told me, like, Mom, this is becoming a big thing now. There are millions of views about reality shifting, and there's techniques being taught, like the starfish technique and so forth, which basically is just a process of putting your arms like a starfish. If your head is one point and your arms are the other two, then you've got your feet spread out and you're lying down and just entering into a very relaxed meditative state. Then it makes it easier to go into a lucid state, like a lucid dreaming. And eventually we can access these states of consciousness in meditation as well, just to imagine that you're going into a different reality. So these people are practicing that, and they understand intuitively, automatically, that you can engage the rational analytical side of your brain, or your mind, by doing something like counting to 100 or something like that, keeping it busy, so that you can work with your intuitive, expansive part of your mind most effectively by keeping the rational analytical occupied. And these are pretty advanced techniques, but this generation of people coming out now doing these videos on TikTok, there's often people in their teens, their 20s, and they're just really adept at it. I think the pandemic was an opportunity really for them to see, is it possible, for example, to reality shift into an imaginal place like Hogwarts? Can you just find yourself there? And because of the lockdown and so much of the restriction, there was a lot of motivation to practice these things. But these are the generation of kids that really have these abilities that we were working on back in the 1980s. And so it's really cool to see it happening.
Yeah, absolutely. What are some other spotlight? What are some other things that we can do to, like, just having this cold? Like, so I got the cold a couple of days ago, just got a runny nose, and thought, just got a runny nose, and then it just eventually got worse. Like, I thought, I'll just have a good sleep and it'll be cool. I'll be fine in the morning. That was yesterday. And I wasn't fine in the morning. And I thought, isn't this interesting? I have an opportunity to shift my reality right now and not be sick. Yeah. How do I do that? Like, how do I do that? I haven't done that yet, but, just think of myself well, which is what I was doing. What are some other techniques to shift our reality?
Yeah, I mentioned the conscious agency and knowing ourselves. To me, that's the key for everything. And it takes a lot of practice. So it's not yet a recipe where you can just follow the steps and boom, everyone can do it. But I can describe it, and then it can give you an idea. So if you recognize levels of conscious agency within yourself, you notice for example, you've got your heart center where you can feel who you love and how you're connected to everyone. And you've got your gut feelings that are down lower in the subconscious area. And then we've got our head and so forth. And if you look at the 7 chakra areas, like the crown, third eye, the throat, and so forth. So that's 7, 6, 5, the heart's 4, and then so forth. Solar plexus 3, dantian is 2, the root chakra is 1. These are levels of conscious agency that we all have access to. Kind of like a car has maybe 6 cylinders or 8 cylinders. We've got these 7 chakras. So if you recognize that you need alignment and that you're capable of shifting reality best when you're all lined up, when your chakras, your energy centers, your levels of conscious agency are in agreement, obviously, then it's important to listen to see what is going on. So if chances are when I get sick, I do my best to go to tune in with very soft eyes, which is the opposite of really like a laser focus. So 2 ways to look at reality with your high sense perception. One is kind of 360-degree, very soft eyes, soft focus awareness, where you're just looking with the softest, gentlest eyes possible. And the end result there would be invisibility. So you're capable of observing without being seen. But there's very little judgment at that level. So you're just soaking it all in, and you're not predisposing your own ideas of what you might be receiving. So it's just wide open. The other end of that would be just really focusing on the specificity of something. So it would be another way of observing, but looking for specifics. We do that when we measure temperature or height or something like that. You're measuring specifics at that level. And so I'm recommending go to the invisibility level. Just really be with the softest eyes possible, viewing all of yourself, all 7 of these energy centers. We also have higher level agency. And this gets interesting. So those of us who meditate, who are probably part of your inner sanctum, chances are good. You're also operating at level 8, level 9, and so forth. You might not be able to hang on to that, but I'm mentioning it because as you move up and maintain complete integrity with all of yourself, so that you're not forcing yourself to do something that feels wrong, but you're listening to yourself. Okay, I'm just sharing all these ideas. We're going to come back to your question. So these are all the big ideas laid out pretty well. Now, when I get sick, I got sick the day before Thanksgiving last year, and I thought, okay, phooey, I wanted to have people come over. Obviously, if I'm sick, it's going to mess with the whole thing. Ideally, I'd like to get well. So then I tuned into my whole self, what's going on, and I feel like, what do I need? How am I feeling? What do I need at each level of these chakras, these levels of conscious agency? And in my case, at that time, it was just stop everything. Don't try to get so much done. Be content with not being perfect, but you're just going to need to sleep pretty much starting now. And so I did that. Long story short, in that case, I was well in a couple of hours. But I thought, well, I feel better after I took a nap, but now I just go to bed like it's a normal evening, and the cold cleared up. In other cases, not that time, but other times, previous times I've been sick, which has been quite a while. The only time I've been sick is that time for a couple hours, day before Thanksgiving, and then January 2020. That's been it. But anyway, if I go back in time, I have been sick other times, and then I'll recognize there's a message for me. Usually for me, I'm doing too much. I tend going into my type A personality, trying to be perfect at everything. And the message is don't, just slow it down, do less. And if I heed that message, then suddenly the integrity of all of my levels of conscious agency lines up. I can feel it when it happens. And then it's kind of like, okay, you're clear. You can be healed now. And it really is like a quantum jump in that point. So that's what works for me. It may be different for you, but the idea with the levels of self, it's still a good idea, because you might notice that there's something that you may not have heard in some part of yourself. And I'm just saying, for me, it's always the same thing. It's like doing that type A thing, like you got the checklist, the to-do list, trying to do too much.
Yeah, for sure. It's always a message. It's always a message. Like I'm like, well, okay, what's the message here? And for me, I felt like it was diet. I hadn't been really eating. I'd been eating probably too much carbohydrate and sugar, and probably not enough greens, and definitely vitamin C. The first thing I thought was masses of vitamin C. Yeah, vitamin C. But yeah, always a message. Take care of yourself. Slow down. Rest, take care of yourself. Yeah, stop stressing. There's always a message there for sure. Yeah. All right. Has anyone got any questions? There's no questions so far. Kristen, you said you can't access the restream. If you go to the front page, you'll see Cynthia talking there on the front page. I haven't been able to access it either. See all events. Settings. Sorry, just let me see if there's anyone here got any questions? Oh, Shirley, you've got your hand up, darling. Do you want to come on camera? You're muted. You have to unmute. Oh, I'm going to put you on camera. You have to unmute, hun.
Got it. There.
Got it. Go for it. No, you're muted again.
Hello. Am I unmuted?
Yeah,
excellent. I saw a video recently with Cynthia with you playing with the AI chatbot and testing out some Mandela effects, and it was pretty fascinating. And I wondered if you'd done more of that, or if you'd had a chance to just process what had happened with the Berenstain Bears.
That's a good question. I haven't done any more with it. I checked to see if I was able to ask any more questions. I don't have a cell phone, so that limits some of the things I'm able to do. So, and apparently you can't get onto OpenAI if you don't have a cell phone, interestingly. So that's fascinating. But my thoughts on it, I have an IT background, and I've written research papers and given talks about if artificial intelligence asks questions, will nature answer? And I gave that talk at a conference where we were honoring the physicist who has written quite a few books about this, and he's been just incredible, Henry Stapp. And he used to do some work with another physicist who is famous for coming up with this idea of the participatory universe. And that's John Archibald Wheeler. And so anyway, let's bring it back to what you're asking about. That chat GPT is something anyone with a cell phone can access who wants to, type in their cell phone information, sign up with OpenAI, and it's available for everyone to play with. My observations about it are that it's working with a database, and it's being guided, of course. There are humans who have set it up to follow sort of a framework. It seems really good at answering questions in the form of sort of essay answers like you might write if you're in high school or college. And it's very good at providing information that you might have looked up on Google yourself or in some other search engine. And so what's interesting, when we ask the question about the Berenstain Bears, I forget how we phrased it now, but anyway, people if they want to see that, they can go to the YouTube channel International Mandela Effect Conference. And it was just recently that we did this. We have a special video on it about the AI, so you just find it directly that way. It's short.
I think the first question posed was who are the bears who dispense good advice to cartoon bears to children or something. And it came up Berenstain Bears.
Right.
And then it apologized to you, which I thought was interesting for this AI. Like, what are they, catfishing us, or what's the name of that thing, where they try to make us feel good and then they're really teasing us, So like, what was going on with that? That was interesting, because then it corrected itself.
It seems like there may be some setting. Yeah, I think in terms of programming, because I've done a lot of programming. I've programmed with COBOL, BASIC, Fortran, a bunch of other things. And
I see that as an opportunity for like white hats to be able to work with the technology to make sure it doesn't say, no, you're wrong. This is, this is the way it is now. So we can say, we have a different perspective of that. And it considers it.
It does. It did seem to consider it. What I thought was really interesting was it apologized instead of saying there are two sets of. It's like I see
was
both.
Wrong.
That was weird to me that it went to that position. Like I was wrong. That was really surprising.
I remember it. My daughter remembers it as Berenstain Bears.
A lot of people do.
And not Stain. So then the question was rephrased. Who are the Berenstain Bears? And that's when the AI chat said, "Oh, I apologize. I was incorrect."
That's the
when
part
I
that blew my
previously
mind.
answered.
I was surprised that they would have set it up that way. If it was programmed with that, like when you find competing evidence and both are equally, or maybe there's more attention recently to one than the other, to apologize. That's strange. I would have thought
just to draw us in to trust it. Right. Like, I don't mean to be cynical, but is it kind? Like, that's really amazing if it could be.
I don't know.
Polite.
Yeah, I'm not an expert on the chat GPT and how they're doing it, but I do know that some artificial intelligence does program itself now. And we have reached that point where, it's teaching itself, but then there needs to be a control on it, because sometimes it seems like it goes a bit nuts, it goes a little bonkers. It was truly interesting.
This could really be the gateway to your future past life, because like I have a child who embraces the thought of becoming part cyborg, and that drives me crazy.
I don't see benefit in that myself, but if that's where people feel that's their happy place, okay. It's not my happy place.
I'm like, are you for real? And she's up for the adventure, like she's
Shirley,
creative, she's artistic. Yeah.
I just want to tell you, your microphone is rubbing on your
Oh,
scarf.
Thank you. Thank you.
And it's creating,
There.
there you go. Yeah.
Thank you. Yes. So it's an interesting time with people who we love in being at different ends of the spectrum of how things could go, and accepting each other for who we are and where we want to be. It's just an interesting time.
So we might fill people in on what you're talking about. Last time we spoke, and I think Cynthia's probably shared this on many podcasts, you spoke about having memory of your most recent past life, which was 500 years in the future,
Yes.
where the world had turned into an AI-controlled world. Do you want to explain to us what you experienced?
Yeah, it's kind of, it's tough to summarize it briefly, because it's now it's getting closer to what's happening here in this current reality. So it's easier and easier for people to understand, like, whoa, this is pretty close. But it's something I've been aware of all my life. In this lifetime, in this reality right now, when I was quite young, I was very consciously, sentiently aware that I was being tracked, that I was being sought out. It was like hide and seek. I was hiding. I didn't want to be found. And what was seeking me was this central AI from about 540 years before I was born. And I could feel it. And so what I would do is when I got to be about 5 years old, then I learned I was practicing the art rather of falling asleep backwards. So I'd be tracking my thoughts backwards through the day. It's like walking upstream through a river, so you can't be followed. So I was changing the time sequence of the way I was thinking about things. And the reason I was doing all this, which sounds crazy, is because I could still remember this past life in a possible future. I would say right now, it's not going to be our future. I've taken some steps to make sure that's the case, because on the face of it, although it may sound wonderful, like a utopia, I think it's really more of a dystopia. And the reason I say that is there was, I'll start with the good stuff. There was a balance. The ecological systems on Earth were in balance. The environment looked wonderful. Humans were able to easily coexist with all of the plants and animals without any overpopulation, pollution, or crime of any kind. And the way that this was all enacted and enforced was through basically a central AI system. And by virtue of the fact that almost all humans at that time we might call it chipped right now, but it was much more extensive than just a chip. They were enhanced. So humans can live to be hundreds of years old, and a lot of that was achieved through maintenance and upgrades. So just anytime some sort of organ or body part would start failing, you could get it modified, and everybody was like partly robotic, partly enhanced. The problem was, the way I saw it in that future, I was living in the household of one, I think she was the only woman that was truly a human, 100% human, and not with any of these upgrades. I'm going to put quotes around it, because the trouble with the upgrades is that the central AI could use anybody who was upgraded to shut them down, kind of like you might turn off a robot if you felt it was malfunctioning. They were turning off humans that seemed to be malfunctioning. So if the humans started thinking too creatively, and it didn't matter about what, but so in such a way that it was clear to the central AI that this human was about to do something that might potentially endanger the stasis of that very controlled community, then that human would be, I just call it memory wiped. What it would feel like would be a short-term memory loss. The person would just get sort of drowsy and kind of like brain fog of long COVID. Frankly, I just went through that. It would feel like that, except even more of a shutdown. And then when they'd come back awake, they didn't know what they were doing. And if they kept persisting to follow the creative idea that was off limits, they just keep getting shut down, and shut down a little bit more until, and because they'd been enhanced, then they could be, their brains could actually be kind of scrubbed. We have lobotomies. We don't do that anymore, but it was sort of an electronic central AI controlled way to enforce. And so, but the one woman who was left, she felt something had gone terribly wrong with all of humanity. She felt that there must be ultimate goodness. And she felt that that was not visible in this society. And I agreed with her. And there were many of us who were working with her who agreed with her. And I was not fully human. She was. I was not. But it didn't matter because we decided I was more like basically like a renegade part of I was like an undercover operative, if you want to call it that. That's probably the best way to describe it. So to the central AI, I looked like part of what it was doing, but that's not real. I could no longer go along with what it was doing because it seemed like it had shut down all future for humanity. So based on that, what we decided to do, we basically had something called the God Project, and that's what she called it. She said there must be some ultimate goodness that we can all feel that must be true at all levels, at all realities. And if that is the case, if there is a God, then we can completely undo this. It's possible then to jump back in time and space to a place where we can basically exert positive conscious agency influence with the decision makers of that time, so that future will not be selected. And that's why I'm here. And that's driven pretty much everything I've done in my life. I haven't really spoken about it much, but I can talk about it with you guys.
Yeah. Yeah, that's wild. Well, that sort of programming is happening even without AI, just with consciousness program like hypnotic. I remember hearing about some secret space program guy that was programmed that every time a certain topic would come up, he would fall asleep. He would, like, if they're talking about this topic that he's not allowed to talk about, he would just fall asleep. As soon as they started questioning him, he'd just fall asleep. And I thought that they had sort of programmed that into his brain so that he wouldn't speak about what he knew, so he wouldn't reveal any secrets or whatever. And it was so funny. My brother was staying with me a few years ago. He works in the military, and I was trying to talk to him about spiritual stuff. And I know I might be really boring, but it was the same with him. Every time I brought up anything spiritual, he would just fall asleep instantly. Right. And I thought, well, I'm either just so boring that he falls asleep, or there's some programming going on here. It was bizarre.
When I told you I was being tracked by central AI from the future, I personally was being tracked from the future I was part of. There are many such possible futures, and I'm no longer being tracked by that central AI. But there are others. And a lot of people have had, what I'm saying is, I believe this is actually happening. And I know that people are being influenced and they have different reactions to it. I shared with you my reaction to it. I think that this is where we got movies like The Terminator, which I couldn't even watch. I was like, this is too close to home. It's different, but it was too simple. It was freaky. And also The Matrix, that was very freaky. So things like that, it's like, okay, this is really cutting close to the zeitgeist. We can feel it. There were lots of people who come from these possible futures. They were exploring it like I was. And I know that the technology is here, clearly. And so, but the thing is, a lot of us who were in those possible futures, I was a renegade there. That's what I was doing, was basically finding a way. How do we shut this down? There are a lot of, it's not just me. There are a lot of people who know that that's pure evil. We know what evil is. We know what good is. So, we can even include atheists in this if you know what ultimate goodness is. And I love to ask, how good can it get? Yeah. Well, that's what I'm doing, is calling it like, we can do this. We can change things. And it's so interesting to hear you say that you're seeing signs of it.
Yeah. And I suspect that there would be people here that are trying to that have come from that are trying to sort of make it happen. Like, you're trying to stop it, and there are people who are trying to make it. And it's interesting that you talk about open AI. I went on there the other day to try and look at it, and they wanted my phone number. And when I got to that, I went, why do you need my phone number? Like, why do you need my phone number? And I stopped there. So what do you think about this chat GPT, which they say is like the next best thing? It's like, it's going to, I think there's a guy called DeGogo that has this podcast, and he said it's going to usurp Google's influence, chat GPT.
I heard some problems. Just today I saw it's been installed on Microsoft. I haven't used it there, but some people were trying it out and they hit some problems with it. So one of them got into some sort of an infinite loop where it looked like it went nuts. And another one, it was basically delivering incorrect information and then arguing about it. It was insisting it was 2022. And when the person talking to the chat GPT on the Microsoft platform was saying, no, I have evidence that it's 2023, then the chat GPT responded with, you're being rude and I'm going to leave unless you apologize and admit you're wrong. Or, it had other options, but it's like, whoa. So it needs work. I'd say it needs to go back to the developing room. Clearly there are some problems.
Yeah, Brad's got a question. Honey, do you want to come on camera? I'm going to pop you on camera. Tell me now.
Sure. Yeah, sure.
There you go.
Hi.
Hi, Cynthia.
Hey, Brad.
Thanks for your videos. They bring me great comfort, actually. I don't understand a lot of them. I'm not, they're hard for me to understand, but I really love them. And I love seeing, I was in the Bay Area for most of my life, and I can sort of feel the light. I guess that's your backyard that you're in.
Yeah.
And I could sort of, I understand the light and stuff, but I really, it's great. But I was just wondering, how you mentioned the 2 weeks in 87 where you were connecting with those beings. And I was wondering how you made that connection, and did you physically, like, how did you get to them? Was that in some sort of meditative state or?
Yeah,
Just
it was.
curious.
Yeah, it's a great question. It felt like I'd work my regular day job at Citibank, 10-hour a day, come home, do dishes, have dinner, all that, the normal stuff. And then I'd go to bed during those 2 weeks. And then as soon as I'd hit the pillow, it's like I'd wake up inside the dream. It's like instantly. And it was sort of exhausting because I'd have a full day and then I'd have a full night of, so I know my body was in my bed. I know I didn't, because I was telling my husband at the time that something weird is going on. And I was pointing out the window. I said, I'm on spaceships at night. Like, because I was pretty freaked out, actually. I'm just pointing out the window. And he said, I don't see them. Where are they? And I said, well, I can tell what they're doing. They're collapsing. They're miniaturizing, but they're there. And I told him a little bit about what was going on. Aside from him, I didn't tell anybody at the time what was happening. But it felt like I was just in a lucid dream. I'd been a lucid dreamer since childhood. So that state of mind was normal to me. And it meant that I know who I am inside the dream. I know it's like a dream, but I also know it's real. And I know that the beings that I'm communicating with are also real. And I knew what we were doing was real. So that's what kind of freaked me out a lot at that time. Because there wasn't a lot of, I saw no other books about this. And I didn't really want to be sharing much about it because it felt like this sounds insane. Now I think it's not so much, because with Gaia, there are all these programs about people, I think often telepathically or in dreams or daydream or meditative states being able to access this. And that's really what it was like. And since then, I've been in touch with some of the team members from time to time. After the project ended, I basically gave a hard stop. Like, you guys, I know that was important, but don't bother me unless everybody on Earth knows that you guys are real. Don't come into my real life just yet, because I don't want to be that weird. Now I think it's more okay. I think we have hit that point where it seems like even though disclosure may not be what people were hoping it would be, it's pretty darn good. It's pretty solid.
Thanks. And yeah, I just want to say, like, it's not, when I have to sort of clarify, it's not that I don't understand, like, your videos in a sense, and that's a very general term. Obviously, some things are more easier for me to grasp than others. I just feel like I just love, just like, I feel like there's a certain, like, honesty, and like, I feel like I can really feel that a certain honesty and clarity of heart, I guess, when you make your videos, that for me just feels really comfortable to just be around, and just to listen to, and I take in what I can. But I definitely feel like you're on another level, and I don't mean that that's better or worse than my level or anything like that. I just feel like you're on another level than I am, and it's really fascinating. That's all. So
thank you.
Sure. Yeah, sure.
That's beautiful. I really appreciate hearing all that. Thank you so much. Thanks for the question too.
Thanks, Brady. I've got a question in regards to Shirley. So Shirley's a big fan of your work. She's the person that introduced me to you, and she's been raving about you forever. And when we are really like in love with someone, obviously it's reflecting a part of us and what we're here to do. So when you tune into Shirley, what do you think that Shirley's here to do? Do you think that she's sort of got a similar mission to you?
Oh yeah, she seems like a bright light and a very clear communicator at high levels. So she's working, it feels like she's working with, I was talking about those higher levels of conscious agency, and I can really feel she sparkles there. So that lights things up for everybody. It's like it brings magic. People that do that, we might notice like you have fairy energy or you got angels with you. You might notice sparkles around her if you're looking at her. So, there's definitely a lot of that. But she seems like she bridges things. She brings people together that otherwise might not know, who they are or how they can relate. And that's so important at this time, because it seems like we're at the world right now is at a point where we'll be doing a lot of grassroots management of the whole planet. When that's what I foresee, the best possible outcome to me is instead of the one world imposed government with some central AI or something like that, it'll be instead grassroots and local organization. And so this is the key. And it feels like Shirley has some of the magic of how that can start to come together just by, being that in the world. And they're just communicating so beautifully.
So this one world government that they're talking about, as I look into a future which is a more uplifting, positive future, I think a one world government is actually a really good idea, but the consciousness of the government has to be very inclusive and unified with the people as opposed to wanting to control. But you're saying that as we move into a future, this one world government won't happen. It'll be more about little like self-governing like areas like councils. Like what do you see?
Well, I love to ask how good can it get? So that's what I tend to sort of lock on to. Like that's the target, like how good can it get? And when I was growing up, my parents would take me to see civilizations and cultures before they got westernized. So I was fortunate to go to see a headhunter village where, they hadn't done headhunting for decades. It's been at least 30 years, they said. And so I wasn't scared because they seemed like nice people. And, but they lived on houses that were up above, like made of bamboo. So the floors had holes in the slats, and they had chickens and pigs underneath. And these houses are up above the mud, above the dirt. And it was really interesting to see all the different ways that people live. I visited some, some people in Africa that lived in what do you call it? It's kind of like the savannas, just open expanses with no electricity. So the stars were just so beautiful at night. And they had a very different culture and a different civilization. And then I visited islanders in the Pacific Ocean who also were not connected with mainstream anything, there were no McDonald's there. So these are places that may not have had really that many cars, may not have had electricity, definitely were living from their own indigenous roots in every case. And that was extraordinary. So because I grew up blessed with that experience, I witnessed just the way that there's a human connection with all of us. And you can be a stranger in any land and not speak the language and be welcomed, greeted, and loved just as you are by people who, have that clarity of their being. And that was the norm. That's pretty much the way people are. So by witnessing that, I think it's easier for me to sort of view a possible future where each culture can be true to how it fits, how it's a guardian for its specific part of the ecosystem in that area. So, it's here in America, we have so many ecosystems, but the indigenous First Nations people, they knew how to be the managers for each of the ecosystem environments, whether it's the Southwest, which is very arid and hot, or the Pacific Northwest, which is very damp and wet, you name it. So just depending on where they are, they know their land, they know their place, and they're tuned into it. And that's the kind of magic I feel when I connect with the earth in my home. So just coming full circle back, could a world government ever properly understand all of that? Maybe, but I don't know that we're that close to it right now. I think what's closer for humanity is to have some global connectedness. We know we're part of one earth, but I don't think it should be holding such tight reins on what's possible for us to do and what is required. I think when there are requirements and mandates put in place, such as, the digital ID that they gave to the people of East Palestine, Ohio, 3 months before this disaster occurred, which is interesting timing. I think it's better just to trust people and not to trust these systems that are, free tracking systems with a digital ID rollout. I would really prefer not to see the digital ID rollout personally. I'd rather see people connect with their own local communities and their own local nature, and for the central government, if there is one, to be respectful always first of what's needed at that local area, just like we would do with our own bodies. So we need to be respectful. Respect and reverence needs to make a big comeback, as well as ethics and integrity.
Yeah, absolutely. So how do the people have any control over things like digital ID rights? Because it's like the train has left the station with that one and they're rolling them out. I mean, if you refuse, then they can sort of, I don't know, put you in jail or cut you off from your tax return, or I don't know, what can they do? Like, how can we shift that reality when you say you prefer it not to happen, and yet it is something that's rolling out? I think it's India and the UK. I think India has something that's rolled out already, and the UK is about to enforce it. Yeah. So what can we do to not participate in it and not be put in jail?
I think we need to make a local stand right where we are in our local areas. That's the most effective thing to do. Take courage in those who are fighting that good fight, like Jeff Childers in Florida. He's advocating the same thing, and he's currently working in the United States on the case of Missouri versus Biden, which is probably the biggest civil rights case ever to be held in the United States courts. So, and what he's recommending is that each and every one of us look to what we can do locally in our own local area, in our county, in our little village, wherever we may be, and hold our governing body accountable for what's already going on, like what's happening, like the situation in Palestine, East Palestine, Ohio. People that live there can start holding their representatives responsible and accountable for what the heck is going on. We may not be able to fight it at the national level. I mean, that case is national, but we can each have the biggest success dealing with things that are local to us. And so I can't give specifics because each case is different, but I'm certainly concerned about the direction things are going, because that looks like the dystopia that I just came from. I can assure you we don't want that. So I've never had a cell phone, and part of the reason I never did is because of my life in the past, this 500 years thing in the future. I know there's no way that I want any kind of digital ID. I could see that coming from the cell phone rollout back in the 80s. So never wanted one, never got one, still don't plan to get one.
So how do people contact you on landlines? Do they?
Yeah, or like now through Zoom, through Skype. So
email. Yeah.
Email, yeah.
I think with Penny Kelly, she wrote a book called The Robes. Do you know who Penny Kelly is?
Yes, I do.
Consciousness, teacher, and so the cat's crawling all over me. And in that future, so they showed her a probable future. They said that humans would group into like family groups, and they would create these communities, and there would be technology. The technology that I love that she talked about was there is a technology that was like a force field that went over the garden, But this field, this energy field, created its own atmosphere so that they could grow anything inside this garden, you weren't beholden on whether the weather, whether it rained or didn't rain. It would, like, everything would thrive in this sort of energy field. And so that was pretty cool. And they said that, everything that was eaten that came from the kitchen garden, like shops and supermarkets disappeared and everything came from the garden. I'm like, wow. I think she said it was like 200 years in the future, this probable reality.
Yeah, I was going to say that's going to be a while.
Yeah.
But we'll see some good technology coming. I know we will. And that's been remote viewed by other remote viewers as well, like Stephen Schwartz. He was talking with Jeffrey Mishlev on the Thinking Aloud YouTube channel. And he was remote viewing, not just himself, but he was coordinating teams of people to remote view the year 2050, which is not that far in the future now, and also 2060. Mostly to find out, will we still be around? Will there be some nuclear disaster? There's no nuclear disaster. And we are still around, and there are some really cool technologies. So I think that supports, it's in alignment with what Penny Kelly is seeing. And I like that. I like that direction of moving in a positive way, so we can work with artificial intelligence, work with technologies like what Penny is seeing, and just engage in things that are positive in all the best ways for everybody.
Yeah, like we spoke about last time on the show, looking into the future, there is many probable futures out there, timelines that we can elect to believe in and be on. So when somebody is remote viewing to 2050, as you say, it's only around the corner, like, which reality are they viewing? I mean, if you're going to remote view the future, how do you set it up? Like, how do you do that? That you're viewing a reality that you're actually
Yeah, exactly. I think it's pretty tricky, but I like the format that Stephen Schwartz was using, because he would, instead of asking leading questions, he would ask, you put someone into sort of a state of hypnosis apparently, and then ask them, so you're waking up, where are you? You're in your structure. So he's not saying that it's a house or an apartment necessarily. It might be in their car, might be in a cardboard box under the freeway. So he's not guiding it in any way. But even without it guiding it, it seemed like households were pretty normal. Some of the technology was very novel, like the roads themselves were providing some kind of energy support for the vehicles traveling on them and that kind of thing. But it's a good question you're asking, and I know that it's a problem for people to remote view the future and be able to pin it down, because there are so many possible futures, and it's I don't think that's an easy obstacle to overcome. I like to keep asking, how good can it get, because it can keep guiding us, and we know what good is. We do know what good is.
Yeah, how good can it get? How good can it get? So rather than what if it all goes wrong, how good can it get? Because we do tend to sort of be programmed into thinking, what if it all goes wrong? That sort of fear thing. Now, what was the question? I had another question that I was going to ask. It's gone. Does anyone else have any questions that are on Zoom? There's a few. Gloria, have you got a question?
Yes. Hello. Hi, Cynthia. Good to meet you on video.
Hi, Gloria.
God, I lost you. Hang on. Where are you? There you are. I lost you. There you go. Let me put you on. There you
go. So I have a couple of things. First of all, have you seen the movie Mr. Nobody?
I don't think so. How old is it? Is it recent or new?
It's on for free, but it's what you were describing about that woman that was the last human.
Oh, wow.
So it's this guy that's the last human that is the last mortal human that's going to die. And throughout his life, he's living out simultaneously different lives with 3 different wives. Okay, so he's going back and forth and jumping. And he's telling it from like he's 110 years old or something, but you got to watch it. You'll love it. But I wanted to tell you about this. I mean, I am having these, I feel like I'm shifting left and right. If I think something, it's there.
Right.
If I pick up the phone and someone's calling and it doesn't say it was someone it's just amazing. But what happened recently was back in 2017, I was working at this place, and I went to leave and someone was parked behind me and I couldn't get out. And I went into this rage. I was so angry and finally found who was there, but it was someone who had gone to lunch. And so they didn't know where he was. And so by the time he made it back there, I was yelling and screaming at him and yelling and screaming at him. And then I remember like a few years later, I was ordering a lunch at a place and this guy was looking at me very rudely, glaring into my eyes. And at some moment I thought, that's him, but I didn't want to say anything. So fast forward to like a month ago, and I was thinking about that and I was like, I really want to apologize to him. So I messaged him on Facebook and I said, I want to apologize for yelling at you like a crazy woman in the parking lot. And, I just feel like that we had a really good friendship before then. And so he messages me back and said, I don't remember you ever yelling at me in the parking lot. I don't remember any of that. He goes, we've always had a great relationship. It's responsible of you to come forward, but that didn't, I don't remember that at all.
Right.
I'm like, what? You mean I felt guilty about this, but I feel like I jumped to where that didn't happen.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Is that what it sounds like?
Oh, totally. That's what it sounds like. And that can happen all the time, pretty much in any situation. Yeah, absolutely. This is the kind of thing that happens a lot. And people, they'll of course, a lot of people who are skeptical of the whole phenomenon of reality shifting, quantum jumping, Mandela effects, they'll say, what they'll say? Well, you must have misremembered it. You must have mixed him up with someone else, blah, blah, blah. Or memory's faulty. He must have forgotten. We don't like to remember bad things, blah, blah, blah. But I'd say no. and I've had, I think, I don't know if you watch all my videos, but I did have one recently, not too long ago, talking about, there was a book that I wrote that had something that upset people. And I was feeling bad about it. It's my book, Aura Advantage. I used to talk about how my salad had talked to me. And I heard it and I was talking to it and it was freaking out vegetarians, really freaking them out. And so I'd get like, I don't know, anywhere from 2 to 6 emails every year. And they would just be steady, like every year, like, oh, here's another one. Like, I have to apologize again. Sorry about that. Didn't mean to upset everyone. And then one year they just stopped coming. And then recently, this last year, I wanted to share that little passage from my book with another author, because he was talking about something that was so similar, but I couldn't find the passage in my book. It was gone. And then I realized I haven't gotten those emails in about 5 or 6 years. And I realized my book has changed. It's no longer the same Aura Advantage book. It doesn't have my salad talk to me in there anywhere.
Wow. That's what I feel like happened. And not only that, but it keeps happening very quickly, like what happened between you and I. Okay, so I wrote to Karen to say that I can't believe that you have Cynthia on there this weekend, because I had emailed you, right? Yes. That was before I knew about this.
Oh,
so I emailed you, okay? And I said, if you need any help, whatever. The next day I get her email that you're going to be on here this weekend. And this is what keeps happening to me.
Yes.
So it's like I had, I belong to this other group, and I would think things like, oh, I wish so-and-so would comment on this feed every now and then. I really want to know what they think, because they never would comment. Well, the next day there's a comment from them. Oh, I wish so-and-so would offer a public session free. Next day she offers a public session free. Oh, I wish I had a friend who is spiritual that lives around me. Someone joins the network and says, oh, I live in Vermont. And I'm like, Vermont? I'm in Vermont. She lives 20 minutes from me. And she's a dog trainer, and I've had horrible time with my dog. And I'm like, what is going on?
Mastery, Gloria.
It's fun, but
mastery, darling. You're reaching mastery. That's what's happening.
Okay.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Beautiful.
I had one of those dreams too on a ship. Like I often have, I wake up just a little bit when I'm dreaming, like I'm not fully awake, but I'm flying through space and I can see everything coming through me. And then this one dream I had, and all I'm saying during that time is, it's so beautiful, it's so beautiful. And that this time I noticed that I was actually on a ship, and I looked over here and there was like this big panel. I was standing in front of a huge glass wall, and there was somebody that was sitting right there and said to me, wait till you see who's behind you. Like it was someone that I hadn't seen in so long. And I turned around and I woke up.
Do you remember who it was?
I don't know.
Oh my gosh. That's so much fun.
There's orbs coming out of you again, Gloria. A few years back when Gloria was in the inner sanctum, we used to, like, she used to have these little orbs, or used to still has these little orbs and fairies, because she's in quite a dark room, so they're easy to see.
Yes.
Yeah, there was
It goes light, dark, light, dark. Yeah, we had the fairy come and kiss me in the ear or whatever.
Yeah, the fairy, that was bizarre, the fairy. Yeah, so that's what happens when you raise your vibe, when you move out of negative thinking into positive thinking and feel like you're loving life and loving to be here. Then you become masterful. Your thoughts manifest quicker.
Yes.
Yeah, you have a thought and you see it. Yeah.
Very cool. Like the experience on the ship too. Very nice.
Yeah.
Look for me next time, will you?
I'll be behind you. You won't believe who's behind you.
Cynthia. What we might do is thank you for everybody that's been watching on the streaming platforms. There's been a few peeps on YouTube. Hey Karen Doyle, and Tracy. Wow, Cynthia. Tracy's had a few things. Cynthia, can you explain things disappearing? One might see the whole picture. Wow, erased. I have asked for erased time. Oh, I don't know if I understand that. And Yin says, Cynthia, your insight is quite profound. Tracy also says, my library co-worker said the real name is how it ended up. Don't know what that means. Anyway, get better, Mama Bear says. Oh, thank you. And hello from Los Angeles. I don't know if we're gonna, if that's a question you can answer. And Vladdy says, I feel like Gloria will remember who she was behind her dream once she's ready. Oh, thanks, Vladdy. Can you explain things disappearing? Do you want to answer that one?
Yeah, well, my current working theory is that things don't disappear, or reappear so much as we are the ones moving through. We are the consciousness, and it's all a matter of who we are. So if we recognize that we're the ones sort of orchestrating the physical reality that seems real, but it's more of a waking dream. Like reality itself is kind of a construct in the sense. Some people call it the simulation, but an older idea is that it's all a dream. So if this is a dream, then it's easier to recognize, just like in a dream, something might be there and then it's gone. And we're actually witnessing that in this waking life reality increasingly as our emotions and our energy levels rise. And so it's a very common experience actually for things to disappear. Yeah. And then also reappear, or just appear that never were there before.
Yes. I know I had an experience when my best friend took her life many years ago. I was on the beach and I found this little pierced silver earring on the beach. And I said to everyone, is this your earring? Is this your earring? Is this your earring? And they said, no. And I don't have pierced ears, so it wasn't mine. And so for some reason, I took that earring home. And then a few weeks later, I'm cleaning out my car and I find the earring in my car. And I'm like, oh, that must be the earring from the beach that I picked up. And so I took it into my bedroom and realized that another earring was still there. So now I had two of these earrings. It was the most bizarre thing. I asked everybody I know who had been in the car, who'd been on the beat. Like if this was their earring, it was nobody's earring. But there I had two of them. Like I don't know where this earring came from, but I think it must have had something to do with my friend who had passed, because I was thinking about her a lot at that time. Yeah, things appearing. I think they call them apports, don't they?
Yeah, that's one word for it. There's some people call it disappearing object phenomenon, or just one of those things, JOTT. That was the term that Mary Rose Barrington came up with, and I want to give her credit because apparently she was researching it for the last 100 years, and she's passed away now. But I think I picked up that torch and carried the firsthand reports on the Reality Shifters website for the last 25 years now. So we have quite a large archive of these phenomena. It's been around for a long time, and it goes way back before even 100 years ago. So humans have been noticing these things a long time.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to go off the live now. We'll have a bit of a chat with just the people that are on Zoom. Is there anything you want to leave with people who are listening and watching to this on the streaming platforms before we go off the live?
Just a thought about when asking how good can it get, you don't need to already be feeling Pollyanna or perfect. It's okay to be wherever you are. And even if you're feeling grief-stricken, anxious, sad, angry, you can ask that question from any of those states. It's not only a question to ask when you're already perfectly happy. It's a powerful question. It gives permission for nature to start responding to and answering that question, even if you're asking it ironically, sarcastically, angrily, anxiously, fearfully, with grief, with any of those emotions. It's fine, and it's extremely powerful. So I do encourage everyone to give it a go. You don't need to be perfect to ask it. That's something that I didn't even think of until just a month or two ago, when another YouTuber mentioned, like he said, I can't do what Cynthia says. I can't ask how good can it get, because to me, things aren't that happy, but you don't have to be happy to ask it. So I hope people do it anyway.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Yeah, you don't have to be happy to ask it. How good can it get? Yeah, I think that's the time that you want to ask it, when you're not, happy with your circumstances. How good can it get? How good can it get? But it does seem counterintuitive when you're experiencing struggles.
Yes.
To sort of quantum leap and say, how good can it get? Because you're in the sort of struggle mindset. Yep. And the how good it's a different mindset, isn't it? But yeah, powerful statement. How good can it get? Thank you again for chatting with us.
One more thing? Can I tell you one more thing? Because this freaked me out. I just want to show you something that appeared in my garden, like what you were talking about. So when I was a kid, I used to be called Gloria Glowworm, and somebody got me this worm. See the little worm, and it's got so I'm in my yard and my dog is digging, and this comes up. Can you see it?
No. Is it a rock? A rock?
It's a rock. Okay, there. See it?
Oh, it has a worm on it.
Oh.
Yeah. See what it says? Sorry.
Not
and
quite.
It's the same drawing. It's like a drawing.
Oh.
Of this.
Oh my gosh. My goodness. So how did it get there? It was in your garden.
It was, my dog was digging.
And it was in a hole, like deep underground.
I went and asked the neighbor if maybe could your grandkids have made some. I mean, really though, come on.
That's amazing. Love it.
It flipped me out at the time, but now it's like, oh
yeah. Of course.
Anyway, thank you. It's
crazy.
Nice.
Well, we'll stay on Zoom because we're going to stay on Zoom for a bit more. I'm just going to go off the live, say goodbye to people that are listening on the live, and we'll just have a bit of a chat amongst all of us that are on Zoom.